There's no need to bootleg on your own. We've got the recordings available. All right, so as Dave mentioned, Kurt Holton with Rise Now, with the rest of the team. Chris and Craig will be our gurus of contracts. Craig will be walking through the demo and training here this afternoon. And also we've got Beth Forster out there in our change management group. And she's been diligently attending trainings and pulling out FAQs along with Stephanie Hoyt, pulling out FAQs and questions as we get through and adding those to training materials as we go. So kind of structure how this will work. I've got a couple minutes of introductory shtick, and then we will go into the contracts demonstration / training. Craig will walk through end to end what the current configuration is, how basic contract authoring, reviews, approvals, a couple items that you need on your desktop. One item, there's a Microsoft Word plugin that Jagger utilizes to do some authoring. He'll walk through installation of that. There may be some campus, I forget if this session's campuses are impacted, but we are still working through getting a couple remaining IT policies overridden so we can get the plugins loaded for everybody. After that, we should have some time for a Q&A, and I'll also come back with some more slides going over next steps, what to expect next week, etc. I just done that. Where we are now, so just to put this in context to the overall CSUBUY program, most of you are probably familiar with, we went live over the summer with the CSUBUY marketplace, which is just strictly the P-card purchasing marketplace in Jagger. All the remaining modules will build on to that same system, same URL. We'll just, as we go through each phase, additional functionality and menu items become available. Phase 2, which we're in now, is sourcing contracts, and for a smaller audience, spend analytics. We phase these out, so we'll do contracts, goes live Monday, sourcing follows in a couple weeks, and then finally spend analytics in mid-November. In January, we're due to review phase 3 with Cabo Group for approval. So if that is approved, then we will go into phase 3, which is actually the biggest phase and contains kind of full P2P functionality within Jagger, starting with supplier management. So it'll be a full supplier registration portal, etc., along with e-procurement, which would be your requisitions, invoicing of all purchases, not just the punch out sites that we have today. And then finally, receiving and invoicing. Go live dates and everything on phase 3 are still yet to be defined, but it'll be out there. And, that's probably more end of 2021-ish. Couple quick benefits. So one of the main, outside of just the core benefits of having a single system repository that's for the whole system-wide CSU system, 4 contracts and standardized processes, and one repository for everything. One of the keys we've worked on and focused on is searchability. So in early focus groups, one of the biggest pain points with CalUsource was just finding contracts. So with all the decisions we've taken so far, we've focused on usability, searchability, and without going overboard on designations, making sure we had enough metadata or custom attributes on all the contract headers so you guys could quickly and cleanly find what you're looking for. For example, be they system-wide contracts or campus-specific contracts, etc. In terms of automation, we'll be using Adobe Sign for electronic signature. I think most or some campuses use that today. You'll also see the back and forth review process, so allowing both internal and external users to redline the contracts. And then you'll see how the system displays differences, so you can do side-by-side comparisons of several different versions of the document. And the system does maintain version history. And then you'll also see we have a number of templates and types, and you'll see the word libraries referenced several times. So as the system matures and we get more use, we'll be including additional beyond just the contract types, which kind of contain a given number of fields and attributes by type of contract, be it goods, services, IT, what have you. Over time, we'll also work on developing a body of actual legal documents and actual contract templates that can be made available and actually slice and dice a bit, so you guys can, rather than having to draft new verbiage every time, it'll be more dragging, dropping, inserting from libraries, different pieces of contracts to make that a more streamlined process. Quick points here on what's done now, what's still being developed. So again, our purpose, our driving principle was get the system out live and start getting benefit out of it, so we can start building new contracts, etc. Enable entry of old contracts as needed, and then continue to build out functionality and enhancements as we go over time. So again, we'll start out with goods and services, kind of some core agreement types. We'll have a few more. We should be live for Monday as well in the construction, public works, and potential IIT. Others that are still developing. We have small working groups that are finalizing leasing and also some contract types around auxiliaries and student agreements. And also any of the other additional contract types that are identified as we get into production. One of our assumptions is that since not every campus is using CalUsource, we'll continue to discover. I'm sure we'll discover new types and templates that are used out there throughout the system that we can incorporate into the global system here. We'll walk through the contract types that are available, and then the e-signature application will also be available. And overall we're using Adobe Sign. However, case by case, campus by campus basis, if there is existing DocuSign being used, we will be working with campuses to utilize that DocuSign if that's their preference. And now with that, Craig Doherty is one of our contract specialists here at Rise Now, so he is going to walk you through the system. As we go through, a couple of things to keep in mind. We do have job aids, and we've been calling them quick reference guides, or QRGs. That'll be available for everybody, as well as some of their video snippets and materials. And as the training is going through, feel free to drop any questions you have into the chat, the Zoom chat, and we'll be answering those as we go through as well. So with that, I will stop. Mr. Doherty, you've got the ball.
Thanks, Kurt. Here we go. If I lost Zoom. All right. So, welcome, contracts fans. We are about to dive into our contracts training. So, as Kurt said, chat window, don't be afraid to use it. We will also have a whole Q&A at the end if there's anything outstanding that we don't manage to hit. So right now we're in the CSUBUY test environment. So this may or may not look familiar to you, but this would be your shopping homepage. So we already have set up a contracts dashboard though, and depending on how often you use CSUBUY for contracts or shopping, you may want to choose the contracts homepage as your homepage or the shopping homepage as your standard homepage. But you can always get back and forth from either one by going to the contracts flyout over here and then to contracts home. So I have a lot more options here on my on the left-hand side than you may or may not have. So if you're not seeing certain icons over here, I just wouldn't worry about it. You should see the contracts icon though. All right, so this is our contracts dashboard. You can see this first widget, we call it, is the contract summary widget. So right now it's showing me all of my contracts that I have visibility into by the contract status. So I can see All right, I've got a few contracts in internal review, external review, superseded, etc. And I can adjust that. So if I want to group them by maybe contract managers, I can adjust that, right? So kind of cool. If I want to do contract types, I can see that as well. So fun thing to play around with a little bit. If I click on any of these on the bar for any of these, it'll take me to essentially a search for whatever that search criteria is. So for example, I clicked on Chris's contract. So this is the only contract I can see that she has set up so far. So kind of a cool way to do a quick search. Oops. Let's go back to our contracts dashboard. On the right-hand side is our first way that we can search through contracts. So this is basically a free text search. We can also get to a more advanced search by clicking the advanced search option here on the lower right of this little widget here. Below that, we've got our quick links section. So these are just some links to things that we thought were often used. So if you wanted to get to the advanced contract search, here's another link to it, right? If I scroll down a little bit farther, we've got our forms. So right now we just have this one CSU supplier request form. So if you are going to set up a contract, but you don't have the vendor in there yet, you can click on your request form and step through all the steps for this and fill out the information, submit it, and it'll go through an approval flow to get approved so that when you go to create your contract, that supplier will then be there. All right, so our last widget on this page is the contract alerts. So again, we've got these filters at the top, so we can filter it by all contracts that I can see, my contracts, or everybody else's contracts that I can see, so other contracts, by the alert type, so give me all the alerts, or just renewing, or just expiring, or just recently expired, and I can filter by contract type, and I can filter by when the alert is going to happen, so in the next 30 days, or in the next 60, or the next 90 days. And again, these are all links. So if I see a contract in here that I want to jump to, I can click on that and it'll take me to that contract and I can do whatever I need to on this thing. All right, let's go back to our dashboard though. Okay, so let's go take a look at our app activation codes. So as Kurt briefly mentioned, we want to use the what's called the Jagger Word app. And so if you're able to use that, the first step to doing that is going to your profile. So view my profile. And under our user profile and preferences section is the app activation codes. So I'll go there and I want to add Microsoft Word. I'll just give my device a name. And since I'm sitting right here, I don't need to email it to anybody. So I'm going to say no to that, add device, and I've got my code. So I'm going to copy that, keep it somewhere safe in my back pocket for a few minutes. Now, if you had multiple devices, so let's say you had a computer at home and a computer at work, two different computers, you would need to set up a different activation code for each different device. All right, so let's open up Microsoft Word now. And if I just open a blank document, so I need to get the Jagger Word app. So I can do that by going to the Microsoft add-ins shop and go to the store, and then you can search for it. So I know that there are certain campuses that are, having a little more trouble getting to this app versus others. So if you are one of those folks that's having a little trouble getting to this app to install it, I think you want to email Dwight Clark, who hopefully somebody can throw his email address in the Zoom chat.
Dwight Martin.
Dwight Martin.
You're inventing names, man. Don't do that.
I think I mixed Dwight and Dale into the
That's
same
all right.
person.
I butchered Craig's last name too, so.
Right. Sounds Craig's name any way we want.
Yeah. As long as you get close, I'm good.
I know it now. I just heard it wrong earlier.
So we've got, there's several different apps are going to show up when you search for it in the store. So if it's got a red J, it's a production environment. And if it's got a gray J, it's the test environment. And so what we first want, what I'm going to add right now is I want the test environment. So I'm going to choose the gray J. So if you see the ones with the little like blue icon behind the J, that's not what you want. That's for the European Union environment. So skip those. But you'll click add and then it'll install the app for you. And when you're done, you should get a little icon in your ribbon up here. So if I click show task pane, you'll get this activation code screen. And I kept that activation code in my back pocket, and I can just paste it in there and activate. So it'll ask me now for my Jagger password, and I'm gonna sign in. And now I've got access to the contracts, templates, all that. But really all I wanted to do here was install the app. So I'm just gonna close this. I'm all set up. I don't need to save anything. When we open a contracts document, we should be good to go. All right. So let's create a contract now. If we go back to our dashboard, I just want to point out, we've got under the quick links, you can create a new contract from here, or you can go to your contracts flyout, contracts, and create new contract from here as well. So either way, it'll take you to the same place. Let's do IT support. Let's not pick Sonoma this time, though. We'll do Maritime. How about that? So you want to choose a contract name that is meaningful. So this will show up in your search results. So you want to be able to put something in there that you can search for, as well as something that when you see it, it quickly makes sense to you and to others that might be looking for the contract. So our contract types, we can click into this box and search for whatever we want. But if you're not even sure really at all what you're looking for and you want to see a full list of the contract types, click on the little magnifying glass and it'll give you a full list of all those available contract types. So for this one, I'm going to choose services and save my changes. So now I'm going to get a couple more options. So my work group, if I click into this box, just like the contract types, it's going to give me all the options for work group for me. So for me, I have access to a whole bunch of these different work groups, but many of you will just see one and it will just default one work group in there. So maybe you're at the Maritime campus, so it would default Maritime for you. Our next field is the main document template. So we have a template already loaded in here. So you may have a template already or a contract document that you already want to use. So if that's the case, then you can skip this step. If you want to use the template that's already been loaded, you can choose that and it will give you a document to start with.
Yeah.
So
this one is just demonstration only purposes.
Yeah.
To give a feel for how they work and what you would see.
Yeah. So I'm going to leave that blank for now. I'm going to upload my own document here on the one of the next couple screens. So now I'm taken into the screen that's showing me all of the metadata for the contract. So let's walk through each field. Our contract number is a automatically generated number. So we don't need to edit that, it just automatically happens. And our contract name pulls in, we just put that in, contract type and work group. We just put all that information in. Our parent contract is, so we can choose, let's say we had a master services agreement that sits kind of above this new agreement that we're entering into. So it's like an umbrella agreement. We would be able to choose that master services agreement. If I know my number, I can just search for it here, or I can click the magnifying glass and get a little more information. So, you know, I'll be able to see the second party and some other stuff, right? But I don't have a master or a parent agreement for this contract, so I'm going to leave that blank. I don't need to do anything there. Use e-signature for this contract. So just a yes, no radio button. If you notice down here, we've got this e-signature section in our navigation bar. So if I click no and save progress, then the e-signature section goes away. So we'll do an e-signature demo a little bit later. We're going to stick to doing an e-sign one for the contract for this first demo. So show in supplier portal, you can just leave this to inherit from the general settings, or you can override it. Basically, this is just saying if the supplier is on the Jagger supplier network, will they be able to see this contract once it gets executed? Contract value. So, you know, maybe I enter whatever the contract value is for this contract. A summary. If I click edit summary, it lets me put a whole long-winded explanation of what this contract is all about. And this is also searchable, and you can do some fun things with like fonts and things, right? So IT contract for maritime. So, you know, you can change the font, change the size, the color, all these things, right? Very exciting. So our next section is the contract parties. Your Cal State University will probably default in here for you. So if you need to change that for whatever reason at some point, you can remove that party and then add a first party. We're happy with Cal State University being our first party for this contract, so I'm just going to leave it, and I'm going to add my second party.
In general, it'd always be Cal State for the first party. Over time, we had some auxiliaries. They may start showing up as available first party as well.
So I'm going to search for my second party. Ooh, we're going with David's Donuts today. And select his party. And I can choose whether or not I use this contact, or I can add another contact. I'm just going to choose the existing contact. And I can choose the address or add an address. There was an address, but there's not much information in there. So, all right, so we've got our first and second parties. So our next section is the dates. So the time zone is going to default in there as Pacific, but if you needed to adjust that, you can. This start date is, you know, a typical date chooser that you are probably used to seeing in, you know, any kind of, on any computer, right? So I'm going to choose today's date as the start date. I can also choose the time that it's going to start. Usually I just leave this to like midnight. And then I can also choose whether or not I have an end date that expires on a certain day, or I can choose no expiration. So no expiration would mean that, you know, this contract is evergreen, it goes indefinitely. But I'm going to put an expiration date in there, and I'm going to put, let's go May 2021, right about midnight. And then review date. So if I wanted to schedule a day to review this contract maybe 6 months before it ends or something along those lines, I could put a review date in here. So maybe it's a 5-year contract and I want to review it every year. So I could do my first review date, October 1st, 2021. And then I want to review it every year. So I'm going to do it every 1 year. Reviews remaining, then I would have, what, 4? So every 1 year, I'm going to review this contract. We have another way to do something similar that's a little bit more powerful and more interesting. So you may like this feature. You might like the other feature, which is under obligations, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. So renewal options is kind of similar to the review, but instead of reviewing it, it would be like the renew term. So let's say every year you renew the contract for 5 years. So similar idea, you can renew every 1 year. I'm gonna leave that blank because we have an expiration date and we're gonna review it. Auto renew would send it for automatic, if you chose yes, it would automatically create the document for you when that renewal period comes up. So let's say 60 days before the contract end date, I want to create a new version of this contract and have the contract manager work that contract, negotiate it, all that stuff, and submit it for approval. But we'll say no there too. All right, so into our general contract information. So these are CSU specific fields that were brought in, I believe, from CalUsource. So they may look familiar to you, and some of them you might not need to use at all. So we've got a services category here. So we're going to choose whatever makes most sense here. So maybe it's miscellaneous. Auxiliary stateside or both. So I'll choose whatever is applicable for me there. Multi-campus agreement. So if I choose single campus, nothing really happens, but if I choose multi-campus, I get a multi-picker, right? So I can choose whatever campuses this agreement applies to.
And the use case for that is if you have maybe potentially some regional agreements. In general, you'll have, in general, most things will be a single campus or system-wide. But again, this option allows you to, if it drill down some more granularity, if if a couple of universities are working on something together.
Yep. So our next question is about small business or diverse businesses. So if I say yes, it's going to ask me for more information about that. If I say no, it just goes away. So fixed fee or rate contract. Just filling in more information. We'll go with $1,000. Is travel included? Yes or no? The scope of work. So some of these things might actually show up as placeholders, which you could pull into the contract if you wanted. So, IT desktop support. So we'll see in a little bit where we could actually pull that into the contract if we wanted to. Purchase order number, I think this may not be entirely needed going forward, just because of the way you'll start using the requisitioning system within Jagger. And then accounting info. So if you have accounting info that's applicable here, you can add it. All right, so our next steps are alternative language page. So this phase of the project, we're not really using this, but it's intended for alternative legal language. So like contract language. If you have fallback clauses, that's where we would see those here. But we haven't built those into the clause library for this phase of the project. That'll be coming down the road. So just to be clear, it's not like German and Spanish and English, it's like legal fallback language. But we can pretty well ignore that for this phase of the project. And now we're on our main document attachments page. So since we didn't choose a template before, we were assuming that I had a document on my machine that I want to upload, right? So I'm going to upload that main document. I can link to it from a URL, or I can just pull it from my computer. And I think I've got a good one here. We'll use this guy. And now it's asking me if I want to print it with a full contract. So yes, typically, especially since this is my main document. But when we look at other attachments, you can decide whether or not you want it to print on the full contract or not, which is going to decide whether or not it shows up on the contract that gets sent out to the supplier for signature. So like when it compiles the contract into a PDF, that's going to be our legally binding document. That's when we decide yes or no on that. So show on supplier portal, do you want to just show it on the portal as its own attachment, yes or no? So maybe I'll say yes for that. And then we're choosing visibility. So usually just leave this to use the summary configuration settings, but if you want to lock it down a little further and only allow people that are administrators or managers to see the contract, you could do that. But we're all set. Let's save our changes. So now we've got our main document uploaded. While we wait for that to compile, we can add another attachment. So let's say we had like a pricing sheet or something that we wanted to also add. We could go find that on our computer and upload that as well. So I'm just gonna grab a spreadsheet and load it in there. So again, I can choose whether or not it prints or not. So maybe I'll say no for this one and say yes on the supplier portal. All right, so we've got our attachments going. Fantastic. So now, as the contract manager, maybe I want to just review this contract document, make some edits. So I can download it just by clicking on the name of the contract here, or I can go over to Actions and download. Does the same thing either way. So now when I open that contract, and you may need to enable editing. So since I installed that Word app earlier, now I've got my little Word app icon here, and I get taken right into it, and I get to see all those placeholder, like gives me some placeholder options. If I expand this, I can drop the contract number in there, name, summary, all these different things, information about the first party, Cal State, the address, same idea with the second party. I could do budget, the value of the contract, general, so other fields that we already looked at earlier, so I can drop those in as well. So maybe I want to put, looks like I already made a bunch of edits in here. So you can see here we've got our placeholder already in here for contract number. We've got our start date already pre-populated, some information about the service provider, David's Donuts. Here's our scope of work placeholder that we put in there. Maybe we want to put just a paragraph with the summary. So I go to my contract section, find the summary placeholder, and click insert. So that drops right in there. Ooh, I've got a clause in here already. I'm going to delete that, and we'll show you how to add a clause here. So if I go, I'm all set with my placeholders. I'm going to go look for my clauses and see what clauses I have available to me. All right, so I've got a FEMA rider, a general provision of goods, and a service agreement template for, ooh, a whole template. Let's just do the general provision of goods, just randomly picking. So if I insert that, takes a moment, it goes out to the clause library in Jagger, in CSUBUY, and it brings it in for me, the latest and greatest version of that clause. So very cool, right? All right. So I'm happy with all the changes that I've made. I'm gonna get rid of all this yellow stuff because that's gonna cause us some issues in just a moment here. All right, so we're happy with all of our changes. I'm going to check it back in. Added a clause and some placeholders. So you usually want to put something helpful into the little comment here, because when you go look at the version history, it's going to show up. So it's nice to have like a little blurb on what exactly, or at least a summary of what you changed in there. So once I check it in, I can just close this. I can save it. I can not save it. Doesn't matter because I'm using the Word app, and so it uploaded on its own. So now if I refresh, you can see my version, it got updated to version 3 in here. So if I go to my version history, and then, yes, I used an old one. So it put a whole comment in here for me. But if I select a couple different ones to, to compare, and go down here and click compare, it will show me the previous version and the new version right next to each other and highlight the things that changed. So we can see that I removed this one, the FEMA rider here on the right-hand side, and I added this general provisions on the left. Couple other changes. Yeah, you can see I added this. This is an IT agreement. So very exciting. So again, this template's just for demo purposes. So if it looks totally funky, that is why. We just kind of threw it in there.
As we develop more, what will happen is those custom fields that we enter in the header, those will automatically be dropped into that into the Word document. But that's part of the ongoing effort, within as we get templates identified, or if legal comes up with new documentation, etc.
All right, so I'm happy with what my document looks like now. So I'm going to move on to the obligations page. So obligations, like I said, you could use this kind of like how the review date is used. So if on a certain schedule, I wanted somebody to come in here and review the contract, I could set an obligation to review the contract. I could also set up an obligation to check in with the supplier to make sure that their insurance is up to date. So let's do that. Let's create a new obligation. Looks like I need to check out my contract again. So I'm going to add an obligation, add a new obligation. Check. For updated insurance. So we could also require documentation. So maybe for this example, we want them to provide a certificate of insurance. So that's what we'll upload when they give it to us. We could make it a one-time thing, or we could make it recurring. So like maybe it's every year or something like that. Let's just do this one time. It'll be a little more straightforward. I can choose when it's going to start. So a bunch of different options, right down to like custom dates, etc. We'll just do it on the contract start date since that's today. I can give it a time and a time zone. So our next steps are, who do we want to assign this obligation to? I can assign it to the owner from the first party, or a stakeholder, or a second party stakeholder. So if I send it to the second party stakeholder, I'd send a notification to David's Donuts directly. But I'm going to set it to myself, which is the contract manager here. I could also pick a user, so somebody that's not really affiliated with the contract, I could just choose whoever. Could put a note in there and some notifications regarding this obligation. However, since it's due today, I don't know that those are really all that important for this demo, right? So our advance notice, since it's super short, we'll just put something silly in here. And save our changes, and we can see that we have a status of upcoming for that due date. So once the obligation is complete, I would come in here, mark as complete, and it'll require me to upload that attachment. So that's my certificate of insurance. So you can schedule those obligations throughout the life of your contract. All right. So let's go to our reviews. All right, so we have two different types of review rounds. We've got internal and we've got external. Internal review rounds are for, you can send it to basically anybody that has a CSUBUY account, right? And the way you get a CSUBUY account is by logging in. Really, that's all they would need, because it will automatically provision some basic permissions, which will allow you to choose them as an internal reviewer. It could be your legal counsel. It could be, pretty much anybody, right? Whoever you need to review the contract that has a CSUBUY account. An external round is typically the second party, so like the supplier, someone from their organization. But it could also be somebody that is affiliated with CSU, but just they are never going to log into CSUBUY, and so you do an external round for them too. Let's do an internal round first. So we'll open a round up, add reviewer, and we get a user chooser, right? So I'm going to choose myself, which is a little silly, but for our demo purposes, it'll work best. So I'm going to choose my reviewer, and you can see the status is not sent. So don't forget that once you add that reviewer, you need to also begin the round. Put a little message about what to review. Maybe you want them to review a specific clause or something. And start it up. So it's sent. If I click the little I icon next to the name, I get a little timestamp on when each step was taken, which is kind of fun. And I, as the reviewer now, just got an email saying, hey, you got something to review. So let's bring that email over here. So this just came into my email. It says, hey, Craig, can you go review this contract? Click on this contract. Here's my little message that I put in there. So if I go to view contract, it'll take me right to that contract header. And at this point, I can kind of go through here and adjust anything I need to. So right now it's not checked out to me, but I can check it out to myself. And if I need to make any edits to this metadata, I can. But really what I'm interested in is this attachment section, because I want to go in here and redline some things. So again, I can download my attachment from here, from the actions menu, or by clicking on the file name. So that'll download. Once I've got it, I can open it up. And just like we did with the original, the contract manager example, I guess I didn't open it yet. Just like we did earlier, I can use that Jagger Word app again because I'm an internal reviewer. I have a CSUBUY account, and so I'll get this task pane option here. So for our next contract, I'll actually show you what it looks like for somebody that doesn't have the Word app. Still super easy, just a little bit different. So you can see it's already checked out to me, and it's in internal review status. So I might go through here and make some interesting adjustments made by someone great, like, who do we have on the call here? Joy, we'll say Joy. Make some adjustments. Maybe I delete out that summary and put a little, we'll put our second party's name in here. I'm not sure what's actually supposed to go in here. I'm just moving really fast. So insert David's Donuts. So, you know, we make our adjustments. Once we're happy with how it looks, click check in. Very minor adjustments to the header paragraph. And click OK. All right, so we get our success message that it checked in. From here, I can say that I'm done with my review, or I can go back, and again, I don't have to save here because I use that Word app, or I can go back to my contract in CSUBUY, and I can click finish my review up here on this link, or I can go to contract actions and say I'm done with my review, or I can go to review rounds and say I'm done with my review. So many different options. Like a big kid. All right. So I'm done with my review round. The original contract manager will get a notification saying, hey, there's a contract that you were working on that is ready for your review. You'll get a notification up here. You might get one in your email, depending on how you have your notifications set up. But since I already have it open, I'm just gonna jump right back to my contract here and make sure that I have it checked out to myself again so that nobody else is gonna make edits while I make edits. And go back to my attachments. And again, I can check my version history if I want to. So very minor adjustments. So maybe I'll select again and compare version history. And you can see the changes that were made, things that were deleted from over here and things that were added over here. All right, I'm happy with it. We're gonna go on to our, let's do an external review round now. So we got our first reviewer in. Now we need to send it out to the second party to give them a chance to review it. So I'll add my reviewer again. This time we'll send it to Larry Bird, how about that? Who also happens to have a Gmail address that looks a lot like mine. All right, so we'll save that. So again, hasn't sent out, so don't forget to click begin round. Now, this is gonna look a little bit different from the internal round because we're going to get the option to choose what attachments are put onto the email, and we can edit the email too. So you can put whatever you want in here, right? Some of these are placeholders, so that's why they're kind of funky gray things, right? So it will actually populate with the person's name, etc. And then when I'm happy with that, I'll send the email out. So sent, again, I can see when it was sent. And now we will have to wait a few minutes for that email to get into my email account. All right, so while we wait for that email to arrive, let's go down and take a look at our, let's go to the e-signature section. So we can set up our e-signatures by, oh, actually, nope, I got to check it out to do that. So we'll go to the communication center. So in our communication center, you can see that this is the email that we just sent out to our external reviewer, Larry Bird. So I can review that, see what all was sent out. And when that email comes back in, our message number here will go from 1, it'll bump up to 2. We can communicate internally or externally through the communication center. So it's basically like a great way to communicate with everybody that needs to have access to this contract and keep it all on this contract. So you can imagine a situation where somebody who was the contract manager on this contract leaves. Well, if they were communicating with all sorts of people about this contract just through regular email, you'd lose all that discussion. Whereas if you use the communication center, all of that is stored indefinitely. So, you know, as turnover happens, you don't lose any of that information. So I could add an internal message and say, like this contract, David, check this out. So, you know, maybe I'm not sending it to David for review, but I'm sending it for some other reason. There he is. And I can choose to include attachments or not and create. Sorry. So, yep. So our conversation, we would go back and forth directly through Jagger, and it'll all be stored in here. So our external review is still taking its time getting to us. So we're going to go on to the next section. So users and contacts. So this is where we can control who has visibility into the contract, as well as other people that can be contract managers on the contract. So by default, it's me as the contract manager because I'm the one that's creating it, but I can add additional people if I want to, right? And I can add stakeholders if I want to directly to this contract. So that would give them view capability into the contract. Now, if I click into this users from work groups section, you'll see that we have work groups set up in such a way that even if you're not in a specific work group, you might be able to see certain information about a contract. It might just be really basic information, but you'll know that it exists. So for example, we've set up anybody that has contract administrator or contract manager role is a stakeholder on, I think, all contracts. So you'll be able to see some basic information. Now, people who are in this work group can view the details of the contract, but can't make any changes. So Laura and Mary are both in the maritime work group, so they can see information in here. And then contract administrators are a lot like managers, but they can actually edit any contract that they have access to. So that's coming from the work group level. Visibility controls, so we can control what those other users can see. So if, for example, I really wanted to limit what those stakeholders in the work group could see, I could set that to limited. So, you know, maybe they can only see like the contract name, the contract number, and the second party. So super limited, right? Let's go check our inbox. There we go, we got it. All right, so back to our external review. Sorry for the delay. So our external reviewer, Larry Bird, just got a notification saying, or an email saying, hey, we've got this contract for you to review for David's Donuts. So I, as the external party, am going to download that and open it up. And just like any other Word document, I can make whatever edits I want here. So typically you'll have track changes on. You might send it to them with track changes on so that it'll document all those. You just want to make sure that you take care of all those track changes before you submit it for approval. But I can come through here and make some changes. Fantastic and wonderful contractor manager. All right. So very minimal changes. I'm not too concerned with anything that's going on in this contract. I love it. So I'm going to save it. And I can close it, minimize it, whatever. Reply directly to the email. So you can see here, it's going to actually go back to Jagger. It's not going to go back to the contract manager directly. So that's what gets it into that communication center. And gotta go find it. And drag it in there and send it off. All right, so that'll probably take a few minutes to get back to us. All right. So let's go take a look at our notifications while we wait for that external review to come back. So our external notifications, we can set up who gets what notifications on a contract by contract basis. So the users and contacts, which we just looked at, remember there was a contract level contract manager, and then there were work group level contract managers, and then and stakeholders, the same idea. So we can choose, let's say our contract level contract manager, we want them to get all of these notifications, but for the work group contract managers, we'll just send them the advance notice. And our stakeholders on the contract, we want them to get the start date passed and the end date passed notification. And our work group stakeholders, we don't want them to get anything. So now we just define what our advance notices are. So we tell the system, all right, advance, what does that mean? For the end date, maybe that means 30, 90 days out and 120 days out. All right, and let's put something in there for our, what do you call it? Our renewal date as well. Save those changes. And that's our notifications. All right, let's go back to our communication center and see if we got that back. We did. All right, so we've got a 2 here. So the contract manager would get a notification saying, hey, your external review came back. So go check that out. So I'll click into it. We can see Larry Bird made minimal changes to the contract, or so he says. We can verify that by comparing, using the compare. So I'm going to compare the previous main document with what Larry just sent back to us and compare. Same idea as when we're comparing version history in our other couple examples there. And it'll point out our changes. So if I wasn't super thrilled about the changes that Larry made, I could continue to Word, and then it would give me those Jagger Word app options, and I could check it out, check it in, make additional adjustments. But because I think this is kind of fun too, let's just say we're happy with all the changes Larry made. We're going to add or update the main document. Super good changes. And save it. So basically what we did there was we took Larry's attachment and we just updated our main document with that. So we can look at the version history and we'll see, oh yeah, super good changes. All right, cool. So since this is an external review round and our reviewer doesn't actually have any access to CSUBUY, we need to go in there and actually say that they're done with the review for them. So we'll say done with my review. Lovely job. And save it. So now we're done with our external review round. So let's do one more review round just so we can see what it's like for someone that doesn't have the Word app, because that's bound to happen, right? So somebody at CSUBUY that just doesn't have that Word app. So let's create a manual internal round, add the reviewer, and we will call it, we'll send it to me again. Choose our reviewer, save, and begin that round. Review without the app. So, let's see how quickly we get the email. All right, we already got it. So I got that email. I can view the contract, go to my attachments, download the attachment. So all of this experience is pretty much the same as a reviewer that is using the Word app. Except for, so we are going to, we'll just delete a whole section out of here. So instead of using that Word app and clicking on the task pane, we're just skipping that whole thing. We can add things if we need to. Save it. And once it's saved, I can go back to Jagger, back to CSUBUY, go to the actions menu. Oops, sorry. I need to actually check it out to myself before I can do this. So check it out. This is the internal reviewer again. Actions and upload new version. Then I'll go find that new version. Should be this one. And save changes. So not really a whole lot different. You just, if you're not using the Word app, you don't get access to the placeholders and the clause library, which are kind of fun and interesting little bits, but it's certainly doable without the Word app. All right. So let's head on down to the e-signature section. So if we, since we're doing e-signature for this contract, we have a couple different ways that we can do it. We can sign sequentially, which would be, you know, one signer. When the first signer is done, it then goes on to the second signer. If you sign in parallel, then Adobe Sign will send the e-signature document or the document out to both signers at the same time. But we're going to sign sequentially for this one. You can also choose. And yeah, so I did forget to say that I'm done with my review round. So let's go back here and make sure when you do an internal review, you say you're done with your review. All right, so back to e-signature. Check that out again. So back to e-signature, our other option for the settings of e-signature are that we can use manual placement or automatic placement. So automatic is either going to just drop a signature block at the end of the document, which you may or may not want if you want to really configure exactly what fields you're getting on that signature block. That may not work for you. But you could also use specific Adobe Sign tags that you kind of hide in your document in the signature block. And that will, if you do that, when you send it out for e-signature, it will automatically just plop the signature fields in wherever you told it to go with those tags. But for our demonstration, we're going to do manual because it's a little more flexible.
Yeah, and keep in mind you'll want to wait until we've got those pre-built templates where the administrator has built in those text tags for you. For the near-term future, right after we go live, you'll pretty much always be using manual placement until Dave and Clear let you know you can use it for a specific template.
All right, so we've got our settings done for e-signature. Now we just need to add our signers. So let's choose who's going to sign first. We'll send it to David's Donuts first. And I could choose the existing contact, or I could manually enter someone else. So we'll send it to David. We're not actually going to send it to David, but we'll send it to me, who is pretending to be David. And save the changes. And now we just need to add our other signer for Cal State. Choose a contact. So you can choose one of the existing contacts, which maybe you normally would do, but in our scenario, we need to keep it in the family. So we're going to send it to Craig again, who is Master of the Universe title, and save changes. All right, so we've got our signers set up. Next step is just go to the Submit for Approval tab. So we can see that we have green check marks and green boxes here for each of the different sections. If we had not filled out some required field or fields, make sure you would get a grayed out check mark or something in here, so it wouldn't let you submit. So if we expand to view the approval steps, we can see that there are a handful of steps in here, but really the interesting one for us right now is this ad hoc approval step. So when I submit it, it's going to compile automatically the Word document and turn it into a PDF to be sent over to Adobe Sign to get sent out for signatures. After it creates that PDF document, it's going to send it for ad hoc approval, which is really just going to be me, and I get to decide whether or not it goes on to someone else's for approval. So the reason we set it up that way was because we didn't want to set up an approval flow that would work for like one campus but not others. So we're letting you ad hoc send it for whatever approvals you really need. All right, and then after it goes through the ad hoc step, it'll go into the signature steps. And we'll talk about those a little bit more when we get to them. So I'm going to submit for approval now. I can enter in a message for approval. We need donuts. Submit that. And then I like to just go back to my contract and check out the approval section and see that it's in this compiling stage right now. But if we just give it a moment and refresh, it's moved on to our ad hoc approval step, which is always going to be you or whoever created the contract. So if I want, I can add an ad hoc step here. So maybe we need to send it for another approval right after this step, and we need to send it to Chris, Jones local user. So now that I've added who I need it to go to for approval in addition to me, I can approve it myself, and that will send it along to Chris. And I can check on it and see, okay, yep, it's waiting on Chris. But through the magic of television, we are just going to override that as an administrator and approve to make this move along nice and quick. Normally, you would not be able to approve on behalf of someone else, right? So now as it moves into this signature robot section, when it gets to this e-signature step, you're going to get a notification, or the contract manager will get a notification saying, hey, you need to launch e-signature for this contract. Since we chose manual placement, we have one more step as a contract manager to do with this contract before it'll actually go out. So now under contract actions, we get launch e-signature. So let's let it take us into the great beyond here. Automatically takes us over to Adobe Sign. So let's scroll down, find our signature block where we want to put our signatures. General provision of goods is quite large, apparently. All right, here it is. Ooh. So we must have had some text tags in here already. So that's why our one signer is already in here. But let's delete those for demonstration's sake so we can actually go through here and do it again. Ooh. All right, so CSU, actually, oh, this is our signature block down here. Let's do this guy. Pay no attention to the man behind the screen here. All right, so when we get taken here, we need to add our signatures. So on the left, we've got Cal State, which was me. Yeah, Duckirk. So we need to drag our signature over there. And maybe we do our person's name. Scrunch that up a little bit so it's not quite so big. Do our title. And then we'll send it to David as well. Let's do signature info title. Whoop. And name. Ooh, and let's put a date on there too. Grab our date. Go there. And grab a date for Cal State as well. All right, so we get our signature in there. You probably make it look a little bit better than that, but we can, now we're happy with our signature block, we'll just send it out. All right. So now we wait, and the signers will get an email. So our first signer gets an email. You can see it says David's name in here right now, but in production it won't say that. It'll say something like Cal State University or something. So don't worry about David's name. We just need to click review and sign on behalf of David's Donuts. And it takes me to the document. So just like e-signing anything else, we need to put our signatures in there. Plan it and go to next. My job title, super fella. And it already put our name in there automatically and sign. Cool. So now the Cal State signer will get an email. While we wait for the Cal State signer to get that email, we can go back to the e-signature page and we can check in on to see how the signatures are going. So we can see here that David's already completed his signatures. And if I click on the little I, it'll tell me exactly the timestamp of when that happened. And now I've got the signature for the other signer, sign. And let's run through this. Craig from Cal State, and job title, teacher, and sign. All right. Get rid of that. Go back to our contract. And it'll probably take a few minutes to actually show up in here. But as Adobe Sign sends a message back to CSUBUY saying, hey, we got all the signatures. This is great. Here's your fully executed contract. We've attached it to your contract and you're all set. You've got an executed contract. And so now we just need to kind of wait for that to happen. And it may take a few minutes. So let's go see what else we can take a look at before. There we go. All right, so we've got an executed contract. If we go back to e-signature, we can see, all right, we're both completed, and here's the timestamp for the completion. If we go to our attachment section, we'll get a fully executed contract. And if we open that up, we should see our signatures in here, which are way down here. Whoop. Ooh, and we get a little audit trail of who signed and when. Perfect. All right. So we may have this situation, well, I'm sure you will have the situation where you've got an executed and in effect contract and you need to do an amendment. So 6 months after the contract start date, we need to change something on the contract. So the way you would do that is you search for your contract, bring it up, and then under contract actions, you can do an amend. You can amend. So let's click amend, and sure, we can include the latest versions or not include the attachments. If we include the attachments, it's just going to bring those attachments from the original document over to our new document. So now we have a draft version of the same contract number, and we can see we're in an amendment because we got the amendment actions up here. But we basically have all the same options as we had on when we were initially creating the contract. We can edit anything on this contract. If we go to our attachments and we need to update and add an entirely new version of the contract, I could either upload a new version, I could delete it, or I could unassign it as a main document, which will keep it there as an attachment, and I can upload another main document as our new contract document. Let's go with this thing. So we might go through all the same steps that we went through on our first contract. So review rounds, setting up obligations, all that stuff. we can do it again here, and we've got our new version of the contract here. Once we're all set there, we can submit it for approval. And I'm actually we're gonna skip e-signature for this one, just for the sake of time. So gives us a little bit shorter of a workflow here. So we'll submit for approval. And since I'm the approver again, right, because we have our ad hoc approval step, I need to either add an ad hoc step after this, or I can just approve on my own. So if we had a wet signature document instead of e-signature, this would be the point at which we upload our fully executed contract. So we go to Amendment Actions, Upload Fully Executed Contract. Now, I can choose to upload a new file because maybe I sent it out for those wet signatures, or I can use the full contract PDF, which is what I'm going to do right now. So, you know, maybe the contract that I upload already had its signatures on it for some reason. All right. So now we've got an executed contract, and soon enough that will update to executed in effect. But if we go down here to our contract family, we can see that here's our different versions. We've got our original and we've got our amendment, and amendment 1, renewal, amendment 0. If I wanted to jump back to the original, I could click on the little I, get a summary, and then go to contract to see all of it. Now we can see that this contract has been superseded. So if I go back to my contract family, you can see our amendment is now the in effect contract. All right. So let's go create a contract from scratch that doesn't actually use e-sign. So this will be real quick. The reason we would want to do this is for, let's say, legacy contracts, or contracts that you've just negotiated completely outside the system maybe, and you're just bringing it in. No, wait, no. I mean, yeah, you could use e-signature for anybody that doesn't want to use, or you could use, sorry, not use e-signature for anybody that doesn't want to use e-signature. So you have somebody that just wants to use wet signatures for whatever reason.
Or let's say you have an old contract, either in CalU source that you've extracted, or a contract you just have in a paper file somewhere from a year or two ago, and you want to put that into Jagger now. This is how you do it.
Yep. So if you've got a legacy contract, one of those old ones, this is how you would do it. So we've got some information we need to fill in. Just choose that second party. We'll go to David's Great Supplies this time. You can choose a contact and an address if you have it. If you don't have it, it's not really required. We'll choose our date, start and end dates. Very short contract, 1 month, and fill in our required information. These are not required fields, so we can just, if we don't have that information, we can skip it. But if you do have it, it's great to fill it out because it helps with reporting and searching and all that good stuff. Let's go to our attachments and upload our main document, which is in our legacy contract world, this is our already signed document, right? So I've got a PDF here and I'm just uploading that and save my changes. And all right. Oh, forgot to go back to e-signature and check no for e-signature, save changes. So if this is a new contract, we can still send this out for review rounds. If this is an existing contract that we've had for, it's already signed and all that, you know, maybe we just go submit for approval. and submit it. Now we've got to jump back to our approvals here real quick because it's waiting on our approval in that ad hoc step. Approve that. And now our final step to get it into an executed status instead of out for signature is you have to remember to go upload fully executed contract. So if that file that you already loaded, that PDF, is your signed file, super easy, just use full contract PDF. If you did actually send it out for wet signatures just now, just choose select file and upload that file that you just got signed. Maybe you scanned it in or something. But we're going to use full contract PDF and save those changes. So now we've got an executed contract. It will be in effect very shortly. Or wait, no, won't be in effect for a couple days because I chose October 4th. All right, so let's go take a look at our search capabilities. So I showed you over here on the dashboard, we have so many different ways to get to the search functionality. So you can search from here. So, you can just type in the contract name or the number and it'll do a search on whatever you put in there. You can get to an advanced search by clicking on the advanced search button. You can get to an advanced search by clicking down here in the quick links. We'll see what saved searches are here in just a moment. And you can also get to your searches by going to the contracts flyout and view saved searches or search contracts. So if I go to search contracts, your first time you will probably be taken to a screen that looks a lot like this. So you can certainly search by anything on this screen. First thing to warn you about though is that you want to probably change the by start and end date from effective to all. So if we want to search, get some more interesting search criteria, we go to the advanced search. And under contract number, you can type in the exact contract number, you can type in the contract name. So we got a lot of interesting search criteria. So, maybe we want to search by all equipment lease. Nope, that one's inactive. Let's choose something else, I guess. So let's do all goods and services contracts, maybe. And save that. And I want to do executed in effect contracts and executed future contracts, maybe. And I'll use any contract manager. Yeah, do start dates. We'll just do all for that. So lots of different search criteria we can go through. So like contract values, party information, where are those custom fields? Custom contract fields. So this should look kind of familiar. A bunch of these questions we talked about when we were creating a contract. All right, so once we've got our search criteria dialed in and we click search. So it'll give me all the information about those contracts. And I can click on one and it'll take me right to all the information about that contract. Whoops, don't click back, it didn't like that. Whoop. So once let's say you really like this search and this is a search that you would run on a regular basis, rather than filling out the search criteria every time, you can save a search. So let's save this search and call it executed contracts. Executed goods and services contracts. And I can save that into my personal folder. If you don't have any folders here, you can add a new one. But I've already got my contracts folder, so I'm going to put it in there. Save that. So now if I go to that view saved searches under the flyout or from our quick links folder from the dashboard, if I go into the personal contracts folder, I now see that contract search. So I can just click on that and it'll run the search for me. Now, if I want to go back to my saved searches, I can go to this breadcrumb up here. There's always a bunch of different ways to get everywhere in the system, but view my saved searches. Now, the other fun thing I like to do is just add a shortcut. So if I add a shortcut and then I go back to that search contracts, now my shortcut shows up right here. So I don't even have to go to my view saved searches. It's just right here. I click it and it runs it for me. All right, so next up, it looks like we need to go back and go through the supplier request form again in a little more detail. All right, so our last thing is this CSU supplier request form. So if you are setting up a new supplier, you can't actually set them up yourself. You have to request that they get set up, right? So let's run through. You can add attachments. So maybe they've provided you with an insurance form or something. You can upload that.
Yeah, you can use the attachment for multiple suppliers as well. So right now there's fields in the form for a single supplier, but if you have, say you're going to do, I want to get to sourcing. If you're going to have 10 suppliers, you can just load an Excel file with the names.
All right, Craig's Chocolates. Doing business as Craig's Chocolates. Tax ID, I do not have one of those yet. Contact name is Craig. Maritime and Sonoma. So fill in all that information. You can review and submit. And now we can see who it's waiting on. So it's waiting on the supplier request review of Claire and David in this case. So once approved, ideally your supplier would be set up in CSUBUY and available for use. We want to see anything else? All right. I'll throw it back to you, Kurt.
Thanks, Craig. All right. So a couple points. We'll do a couple points here, then we'll save some time for questions at the end. So key tasks for what's coming up next. So we've got, we go live on Monday. So key dates would be October 5th that's when you can start entering, and actually the request out there is that you no longer, if you have been using CaluSource, refrain from using that and start loading all new contracts going forward in CSUBUY. Like we said, you can also start loading any, if you have agreements that were never loaded in any system, you can start loading those up as well. One keynote here is that we aren't, for a number of reasons, we're not doing a automated conversion of existing contracts from CaluSource into CSUBUY. Not digging too deep into it, there's some cost implications as well as the time required the time required to prep everything for an automated conversion it would be by and large more time than just re-entering them. So we'll be asking the direction for the campuses that you guys can identify and prioritize what existing agreements, be they in CalUsource or some other file cabinet, determine which which ones you want to have live in CSUBUY going forward, and go ahead and enter those as already existing agreements. But do note that CalUsource does go away December 31st. So anything you do want to pull out of that system, you need to do before the end of the year. Requesting new supplier. Craig just reviewed this, so I don't need to drain this. Just to give you a little more context behind why there's an additional form. So it is an interim solution until we get into phase 3, where we'll do full supplier management and automatic integration with suppliers and Jagger and PeopleSoft, etc. So in the meantime, in order to keep the supplier master files clean as we can and reduce additional duplicate suppliers, we're going to run new supplier, and actually semantically, it's actually we're entering them in as contract parties, which in Jagger effectively becomes a supplier as well. But so we'll be entering them as contract parties available for sourcing and contracts. We have a couple hundred, 200 to 300 suppliers we've entered already, based on top suppliers by activity from last year, as well as suppliers with open system-wide contracts. So those are in there. We wanted to make sure we try to seed at least the big ones, so they'd be in there. One important note is that the data we had did not have locations and contacts. So while the suppliers should be there to add as parties, you'll likely have to add locations or contacts if necessary when you go add those second parties to a contract. Again, if there's any, I know we're getting pretty close to next week, but if there's any suppliers you can think of right now that you're gonna have to you're gonna be interacting with in the near future, go ahead and let David and Claire know, and we can get those in the system ahead of time. There's no change to the onboarding for CFS. So again, we're not doing anything with tax IDs or the forms or any other files. We're for our purposes, it's just getting them in to be available to contract with it and do sourcing. Only when we get into full e-procurement do we need all, everything else. Now we do ask for tax ID if you have it. The reason for that is one of our future efforts is consolidating the suppliers into a single supplier master. So what we'll, as we identify suppliers now, part of the effort we'll do before we add them is make sure we get the right tax ID supplier. So part of the checks that we'll do when we get a supplier request is go into PeopleSoft and see if it exists in any of the campuses, and then decide which of them will become the kind of the global supplier for that name. Some search basics, again, Craig covered these, but then they're also be into FAQs, but it's worth noting on that search, again, there are those couple parameters he highlighted. Those get us every time. First time you go in and create some contracts, you go into search and you don't see anything, it's because of these two parameters. The active for shopping flag, and that again doesn't make the active for shopping construct doesn't really apply to us right now without ePro. What that will show us for later, though, is that when we have ePro going, you may want to designate contracts where we're allowed to purchase from vendors, but ahead of that, though, typically you mark them as not active for shopping. That's where you're negotiating or strictly sourcing. But it does come out of the box checked, as well as the effective date. So right now, if it only bring back those that are effective, so you want to switch that to all. The nice thing about that is a sticky parameter, so the first time you change it, you won't have to update it again. It'll hold your last selection. And a couple of points you can read through when we send out the deck. Craig walk through all different search options by either the custom fields on the headers versus the work group for any number of ways. And then final note here again, as you saw, the contracts will be automatically numbered based on criteria. So, and the way we're setting up for the future is old contracts. We do have a field to add in the old contract number, but you'll also get a new Jagger generated number, which should make for more uniform searching in the future. Couple more tips and tricks. This is a sampling of what Steffi and Beth have put together, and we'll have for you further. Again, just a lot of reminders we've seen have come up during the training. Use a manual placement for the e-signatures. Use the ad hoc approver to add any formal approvers. Again, I think we covered it, but just one thing I always like to reinforce is if we look at reviews versus approvals, reviews is everything negotiation-wise. So the reviews is agreeing on language, striking things in or out, finalizing the verbiage. Once you get to an actual approval step, you're approving everything that's been done. So your past negotiations, both sides have agreed on everything, and really you're just looking at any of so you're looking at the signature, the person with authorized to sign that, and then if you do want any other form approvals, you can add those there. But again, the approval is everything else is already done and dusted, and they're just signing off on everybody else's work. Draft contracts, just a quick note really for the future, is we find it helpful to tell clients that when you have, particularly if you have contracts you spent some time working on and maybe have some artifacts and attached files, and if they don't, they don't go through, or they, you don't engage with the client, rather than deleting those, it's nice to keep those drafts out there just to have that history. Unfortunately, there's no status to mark them as, an old, but I want to keep it. But that's why we say overall, just keep the drafts. Nothing hurts. Tools and support. So to go live next week, how will you be supported? So we will have a series for the next probably month or two or more. For any participated in the earlier training, we'll hold we'll publish and hold open office hours. So we'll have folks from Rise Now and also CSU on the line to assist with anything you guys need in contracts and sourcing. So, if you want to go to create your first contract and, you've viewed the training, you've read the FAQs, but you still want some help, that's why we're here. So, whenever you create your first contract, we encourage you to join the office hours calls and do it there. And, those will be open to everybody. So even if you don't have a contract and you want to see some real life examples start to be built out in production, feel free to join any of those. And those will be published in the communications that come out. And there'll also be invites coming out shortly through the listserv capabilities. Training materials, we've mentioned several times, the QRGs. As well as the FAQs. We've also been working on some short video clips, both for CSU side people as well as suppliers. So on the supplier facing portal, there'll be some additional information for suppliers. For contracts, it's pretty straightforward. As we get it more into sourcing, there'll be some additional documentation and videos for supplier engaging with sourcing. You also want to talk to your CPRs. So your CPRs have been in testing for a couple of weeks and been more involved. And ideally, we look for them to be somewhat of the campus, thought leader on use of the systems for contracting, etc. And then also, I would say finally, but it doesn't have to be finally. You can always ask for help from the chancellor's office, and you can do that via ServiceNow request. So here's where you do that. So from the marketplace website, go ahead and report an issue or issue/question, and someone from the chancellor's office will get back to you. Please allow 2 business days for a response. Questions, next steps. Biggest one is to go live Monday. You'll receive a reminder, as we put in the chat earlier. If you've never logged into production CSUBUY, we do ask you to do that at any given time, and that's nothing. We're asking nothing more than just click into it. You'll see a homepage, and you can be done. Then over the weekend, we'll grant your roles. So on Monday, you'll have permissions. In the interim, again, before phase 3, our user provision will be somewhat manual. It'll be automatically created when you log on, but any additional permissions as we roll out new capabilities, those will be maintained by the product team for the immediate term, and then taken over by the campus admins for Jagger doing your administration for a marketplace. Look for the invites for the office hours. So I promise those are coming out soon, but I promise that every day. And I think that is it. So we got 13 minutes for questions. Who's got questions? Anything else anything we can, what we see in the prior sessions, there may be things that you just want to see again, just for a repetition, something you may have missed, something you're really interested in. Open forum, no judgment. Are we still there? Is everyone hearing me?
I hear you.
All right. No, it's the afternoon.
A question coming in the chat here, Kurt. Question for CO on fields. When campuses do a contract search, will there be a field when viewing the contract for campus-wide to see if it was a competitive or negotiated contract? That's something, David, you can help answer?
Yes, there will. I'm trying to read the last question. Rebate, yes or no field to populate would also be great. Don't have anything for rebate, but that's something we can consider. But we certainly have custom fields to determine to what extent it meets competition requirements. There's another one from Jane Gardner. Say, I don't anticipate negotiations, but I know that my vendor won't sign until the assistant has reviewed. How's that done?
And this is so the assistant from the vendor.
Oh, so
yeah, so
yes,
you would send that review via the external review rounds.
Yeah.
So you could just send the contract out to Sabrina in an external review round, and she'd review it. If she needed to redline it, she'd redline it, and then she'd just email back to the email that she received, and that would track it in the system for you in that review round.
Thanks, Chris.
And as opposed to adding her as an ad hoc reviewer?
That would be internal. If this sounds like it's an external party, it's a
This is external.
yeah.
Okay, so ad hocs are internal reviewers,
Mhm.
then we use external reviewers for.
I mean, really,
Yeah, the ad hoc approval is really, you've already got the language of the contract finalized, and you need to send it to somebody in your organization for an official approval, knowing that they're approving something that's not going to change. It's just going to get signed. If you're having somebody to review it, and they may need to update the verbiage, then you do either an internal review round or an external review round. The internal review rounds are designed to go out to people in the CSU sphere, right? And then the external review rounds are designed to go out to your supplier and have them review and update the document.
Okay. And then Adobe Sign has the CC feature when you want to alert the assistant that it's been, that it's en route to their boss. And does that work the same?
yeah. Once you do the handoff to Adobe Sign, that's as it is today.
Okay. Thank you.
Good questions. Anyone else?
Who's Joy on? Joy, you always have one question for us if you're out there.
Or have we gone to the well one too many times?
Is everybody tired? Is late in the day? Need another cup of coffee? We do have, if you want to see these, this training video, again, we're posting them on our website. We also are posting all the other trainings, which, like I said, the training material is exactly the same, but depending on the questions that were asked, depending on how the flow went, there may be some slight differences. So if you have an hour or two to kill and you want to watch another training video, we have the others posted. I think we did lose one of them due to it not recording, but so far we're going to have, this is video training session 5. So we have, at least if this one works, we'll have 4 of the 5 and hopefully another one tomorrow. You're welcome, Tiffany. Well, Kurt, 8 minutes to go. I guess if there's no further questions, we can call it. And, I want to, I guess, reiterate about the office hours before we sign off.
Yep. And thanks for the plug there, Mary, as always. Come to office hours. Those invites will be out there, and they'll be in the communications that are coming out today. And reminder again on Monday. We'll have a variety of afternoon and morning times. Again, those will be going forward. But don't limit yourself to reaching out just for those. And reach out to the team with any questions, whatever you need.
And yes, auxiliaries can be first or second parties. I saw the last question that just came in.
Oh, I didn't see it. Okay.
Yeah. All right. We'll hang out for a few more minutes, but if you want to drop, feel free to drop. If you have any more questions, we can hang out for a couple minutes, see if anybody wants to hang around.
They're dropping quick.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, everybody.
This is Jane. I have another question.
Sure, John.
Is there any plan of using this on the grant side for things like subawards and things?
Actually just came up on a call just yesterday.
Yeah, we can certainly do that. Just haven't scoped that out yet.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah, it's on our radar of how can we accommodate and maximize.
All right, anybody hanging out? I'm expecting questions. How about Dusty? Do you have a question, Dusty?
Yeah, Brittany, Annie. Just calling names that I can say. Celia.
Or they walked away to get the coffee.
What's up, Terry? All right, I think we call it, sir.
All right, let's do it.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
I do have a question. I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I didn't want to be shy, but
That's okay.
we use CalUsource for RFPs.
Mm-hmm.
And so what are we going to be doing with our RFPs now?
They'll be going into CSUBUY. We're starting, sourcing should be live in a couple weeks. We're starting testing. We've done some preliminary testing. We're expanding the testing currently, and then we'll have trainings like this for sourcing in about 2 weeks, Kurt?
Yes, sir. Not even week and a half.
Week and a half.
Yeah, we're actually combining. See, actually, we're actually starting small core team and CPR training on Monday, but we'll be opening that to the whole group. So if you're interested in learning about sourcing early, talk to your CPR and we'll get you on the list.
Okay, yeah, because I know our campus is going to have some services that are going to need renewing soon, and we're going to want to post our bids. And so,
we're the app for you.
Excuse me?
We're the app for you.
Yeah, we'll be. If you have bids that are ready to go, we should be able to. We should be live within a couple weeks, and we're happy to run those with you.
Yeah, I don't know if we have any in draft or anything, but I know there's talk of things that may need for like January 1st.
Oh yeah, definitely don't put this on CalUsource. CalUsource will know it'll be gone. It is turned off December 31st, but we will be live in CSUBUY for sourcing within 2 to 3 weeks.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Now I'm going to turn off. Have a great
All
day,
right.
guys.
You're welcome.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
And just a little plug here, you can quickly and easily turn your awarded sourcing events into a contract. So that'll be a nice tie that you'll see as you go into sourcing training.
Well, looking back, me and Chris have said that we probably should have done reverse order, but hey, we are where we are.
Yeah, it's okay.
All right, I'm gonna stop the recording.